podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network, kingofpodcasts.com.
So I have a movie grading system these days that goes like this. Movies that are good, movies that are bad, and movies that are on Netflix.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Welcome to episode 380 of the Broadcasters Podcast. This is King of Podcasts here with you. Appreciate all of you joining me here on the program. It's coming up on another Friday night. For some of you that might be catching this episode as it first drops, wherever you're finding it, kingofpodcasts.com. And of course, make sure, if you haven't done so, to go ahead and drop a little bit of help into the tip jar of mine that's over there. What you could do is you can go ahead and either buy me a coffee, drop in a PayPal, or a Cash App if you'd like to go ahead and support this programming and you like what I do, besides the advertisements that might come across here for listening on the audio end. But for those of you that are listening on YouTube, if you want to help out this program a lot, you will do a great deal for me and help make a small little donation in the tip jar. I'm not asking you to go in any subscription route. Just drop a little bit in would be really great. I'd appreciate that. So Ted Sarandos has been very vocal over the last couple of years. He can't help himself. He has to keep talking about the fact that, well, that Netflix just supersedes the movie theater experience. He has been saying that over and over. And every time somebody wants to go ahead and go out there and talk about it, and he's more than happy to go ahead and open his big mouth about it and say that because they're creating so many movies on a regular basis, and, you know, they always want to keep saying that there's something about what he's doing that is so wonderful that, you know, he feels like he's not doing anything outside of the sex. Like, he thinks the quality of the movies they're doing right now are just as good as anybody else. I can totally disagree on that. So here's the latest end of things. Look, you know, I always have my thing against Bob Pittman, and, you know, Ted Sarandos is the same way for me right now. So he was asked about this at a Time 100 event. He was speaking on it, and he was asked this question: Netflix is destroying Hollywood. And his reply is, the streaming giant is instead saving Hollywood. He says, quote, Netflix is a very consumer-focused company. We really do care that we deliver the programming to you in the way that you want to watch it, and it's programming that you love and desire. So we don't let a lot of other outside forces get in the way of that. And then he talks about the recent statistics at the box office being down as a way of consumers saying, we like to watch movies at home, thank you. Studios and theaters are duking out over the 45-day window, which is completely out of step with the consumer experience. He described the idea of making movies for the big screen. Have strangers watch them and play in the theaters for months as an outdated concept. If a movie has quality, people pay for it. And it goes for a lot of other different items and products we go and watch. You know, even though people might say, well, pay television is an outdated concept like HBO or Showtime or the movie channel, but or pay-per-view is an outdated concept. But the quality of the content was what you paid for. But you think that you can just go and drop in whatever content you want and just give one flat rate, $23. Ted Sarandos, the Netflix model is no more different than the Movie Pass, basically. You want to just give access to all your content, well, that's fine. But you know what? Movies have such a high price tag. And congratulations for you to be able to get movies like Cloverfield and other movies that some of the studios realize they're going to be duds, so they pass them off to you. Do you understand? You get the scraps of studios. And then you're also making exclusive deals with actors and actresses and directors that might have already a track record, but, you know, what are you going to get from them if they're going to give you like an assembly line of different shows to watch? Some people are able to go and still do that, but it's still very hard to go and ask for that from Shonda Rhimes, from Ryan Murphy, and others. He then backpedaled, saying that the idea of going to a movie theater isn't an outmoded idea for everybody. If you are fortunate enough to live in Manhattan and can walk into a multiplex to see a movie, but most of the country cannot. Hold on a second. We know that movieplexes are still around. Now, there's a thing where COVID did not help the movie theater experience at all. It hurt it mostly. For the movie theater industry, I understand the prices have gone up so high. It's still the cheapest entertainment experience you have out there for the most part. Because I know it's what, $15.89 right now for a standard movie ticket at the moment for the box office at where I'm at in the Regal experience. Meanwhile, I pay what, $26 a month for the Regal Unlimited Pass. Any movie theater of Regal, any movies I want. Like I can watch up to 3 movies at a time. 3 movies a day if I want to. Now, he says he loves movies in theaters, but the lack of a theatrical experience doesn't totally bother him. Quote, what would bother me is if people stop making great movies. If we want people to watch them the way we want to watch them, then people won't be able to make movies anymore because there won't be a business for it. Listen, you want to go ahead and throw away what is essentially the last 100 years of movies? If that's what you want to do, that's what you're trying to do. But there's always been the experience of having a good movie, like a theatrical portion. Listen, just because you have something where entertainment, you don't want to again go get dressed, and you want to go and pay a high movie ticket price, then why is Broadway still popular? Because Broadway's the same way. Do you think we can get the same thing with doing Broadway on Netflix? Ted? What about a concert? Do you think we get the same kind of feel of a concert? Ted? The thing is, just because it's already been produced and created, most part, what he's not making a point of is that just because Netflix is available on any phone, tablet, or you want to put it onto a TV screen, fine. But I can never replicate what I get in a movie theater. When it comes to, I don't need to go ahead and worry about smelling up my house with a bag of popcorn and getting it freshly popped, because at my theater, they freshly pop the popcorn. If I want to go and have a nice seat, okay, sure, we could get a good lazy boy chair, a good couch, whatever, in your home. But the television and the surround sound and the sound experience of the movies, certain movies, you don't get the same kind of feel with. This is pretty standard fare. I mean, everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about here. But really, the sound that you get in a movie theater, if you saw Top Gun Maverick a couple of years ago, listen, the F1 movie with Brad Pitt coming up, you're telling me you're going to get the same kind of feel of that movie if you're watching it on Netflix? Now, if you have Bluetooth, you have a pair of Beats headphones or whatever you have as headphones, and you want to listen to it that way, yeah, then you can replicate the experience of the movie theater. But what if you're watching with somebody else? If you're watching with somebody else and you want to enjoy it, to create that surround sound experience, I'm sorry, it's very expensive, and it's not as easy to go ahead and replicate that surround sound experience. It's just not. Meanwhile, the movie theaters take care of that. And some of these movie theaters, looking at on a huge screen, like an 80-foot screen, like an IMAX, is another experience in itself. And some people don't have the size of TV that will really go ahead and replicate the real feel of what the movie is, right? Because the movies are being made with the quality to do that. Now, I don't know if Netflix actually puts that kind of quality up in their movies when it's going to be put out. Is it going to be made so that it can be put onto a theatrical stream? Can it be done like that or no? It might not be an original film like it was before, but it is digital film these days, regardless of what you think. He talks about the Paris Theater in Manhattan, the last single-screen theater in the city, being saved by Netflix because it was going to become a Walgreens or Duane Reade. A move that wasn't designed to save the theater experience, but rather the theater experience. Now, one of the things that's being talked about when it comes to movie theaters that is going to be a little bit of an issue is the fact that because of the tariffs that are being put down from the Trump administration, the current presidential administration, and their tariffs being put up against China. China right now is announcing they will further curb the number of U.S. films allowed on the screen of the country in response to the imposition of heavy tariffs on Chinese imports. So that's the one thing they're going to try to do is say, okay, well, that Chinese market, which is the international box office, is very reliant upon certain movie studios to be able to go and make back the money on their movies. They're not able to get that. That's hurting them in the long run. But part of the thing that we have to talk about as well, if you're going to go ahead and make those comments, Ted, about the experience, we can talk about all we want. But it still comes down to the fact that we know there are issues when it comes to the movies that are being put out. Like, don't blame what's going on out there part of it is we have the issue where there's movies that are being put out by Netflix that, you know, even if there were people that wanted to go and watch it in a movie theater experience, the last movie I remember that Netflix tried to put out in the movie theaters to give it a little bit of time was the second Knives Out. And it was a great movie to watch in the theater. And I'm like, well, they gave it a week or two, but they could have given it more time for people to go and watch and make some money. Look, that 55-45 split that you get with the movie theaters and the price you're getting on those tickets is pretty good. You're still getting a lot of money for that. And it's an immediate return on investment. For Netflix, everybody else is going to pay $23, whatever it's going to be, if they want it with or without commercials. So you're already nickel and diming people right now anyway. If they're paying, $10, $13 an hour, $13 a month rather, for Netflix, then they're going to get the ads in it. Okay, then they're fine with that too. Okay. But then you're also making it where the price of the movies, for people to go and watch it, there are some people that are willing to go and watch a movie like it's a TV movie, where they waited months or years to go and watch it later. The thing is, we should have the best of both. There's no outdating anything of the day and date model, because of the fact that we have this model where some people will not, if they want to have the impulse to go see the movie in the movie theater, then they will. But there's some movies that should get the chance to go and be noticed. Listen, last week I saw Sinners, the Ryan Coogler directed, Michael B. Jordan starring film. And I don't know if people are going to get the same kind of buzz or same kind of feel about going to see the movie on Netflix. I think it would have cheapened the experience. Just because Netflix is getting some considerations for movies they have that are being considered for Oscars, it's never a movie that's one of their original movies that they made themselves. Nothing that The Rock did or John Cena or some of these other movies that they have out there, okay? With Kevin Hart or Adam Sandler. No. Remember, Netflix has original movies that are just filler. But then the movies that they get that are going to make a little bit of money, that might get some critical acclaim, they're always from somebody else. So they just happen to be the place to go and put it. But that's it. There's something to be said about like when there's certain independent movies that you can't watch in a theater because it's too hard to get to. Okay, but widescreen releases, you absolutely should see them in the theater. If they're available for a couple of weeks, let it be done. Now, maybe the 45-day window that we have these days where after 45 days the movies can go to streaming video on demand or premium video on demand, I don't mind that too much. Even if it's at 30 days, I don't mind it too much there either. But seriously, 4 to 6 weeks after a movie comes out, give it some time to be in the theater, and if it pans, it doesn't. See, what I would prefer to do is this. I'd rather not let it be a particular window. What I would love to see is if the movie studios made a deal to scale out what they have. I would love to go and see a model where when a movie comes out, if it's doing well, then go on a week-to-week basis and let it be held over like it used to be back in the day. Because there used to be a point where movies did so well, and then the studios would do a deal with the theaters and say, okay, we want to keep this movie in the theater. Make it a week-to-week deal. So movies are held over when they're really going well, and then there's not set to a particular window of exhibition, and they just drop off. And if there's some movies that are not doing well, then let them drop right off to streaming. If a movie is going to go bad, then the movie theaters are allowed to at least request a 14 to 21 day window, 2 to 3 weeks. So at least they know they have coverage for these movies out there, and they'll give them the times that are necessary, whatever they need. And if the movies are not going to do that well based on what it is, then they don't. But they should make a deal initially where it's like, okay, maybe some movie might be a week long and that's it, and goes away. But if it's something that gets a couple of weeks, gets that run, see if people are going to go to it for a couple of weeks. And if it's something that goes well, then it can be allowed to be held over. Held over, see what happens with it. That used to be a normal thing in the whole point of the theater experience, and they can still bring that back if they wanted to do that. But they don't, for whatever reason. So they're allowing certain movies to go and get limited theatrical releases if they're seeking awards qualification. At least they're doing that part. And that's 2 of the movies they had where I mentioned Knives Out, the sequel Glass Onion, and Emilia Perez. Kind of funny where Emilia Perez kind of like shot itself in the foot and Honora took over and got the Academy Awards instead. So Sarandos says that we do have these bespoke releases. We have to do some qualification for the Oscars. They have to run for a little bit. It helps with the press cycle a little bit, but I've tried to encourage every director we work with to focus on the consumer, focus on the fans, make a movie that they love, and they will reward you. And he says that we're in a period of transition. I want to make movies on a gigantic screen, have strangers watch them, play in the theater for 2 months, and people cry and sold out shows. It's an outdated concept. If it's well done, if it's popular, if people are going to watch it, listen, Minecraft right now, it's still kicking ass. People are still going to watch it. Sinners should have time to go ahead and flourish. If it's going to do well, money with your mouth is. See if it actually does anything well. He warned Hollywood not to get trapped behind wanting audiences to see movies in theaters because that's how the film industry wants audiences to watch them. Instead, for the sake of the entertainment business, Hollywood should adapt to the way in which audiences want to watch movies. Listen, we don't need this to be a part in the movie theaters that they need to go ahead and make it where movies have to be put in a way that, they're like run like TV shows. That's the other part I'm looking at as well. Because when there's movies that are adapted for television, or movies for television, that's what Netflix is doing. Netflix is creating movies for television. And just because they're not doing, and not everybody's privy to the same ad model, but the ones that are ad-supported models, ad-supported subscriptions, they are getting the ads, like it's watching a TV show. The only difference you're doing right now, Ted, is the Netflix will still have the content as it is, with all the explicit, graphic, vile content that's going to be on there. But still, the film industry is right about how they want audiences to watch the movies. I don't know about you, but I can't go watch a movie that's a comedy and not love being able to laugh with others and get into the laughter of the movie when it's good, or when they're not going to laugh. It's been so hard to find any movies lately that make me laugh like crazy. And if I get in there, I get a good guffaw from it. Like the last movie I remember seeing like that was Bad Boys for Life, the last installment I just had. And that movie gave me a whole lot of laughs. Minecraft, not really. It got some kind of shy guffaws here and there, but like little tee-hees kind of things like that. But nothing really like super blown out laughter. Nothing like that. But then we also get some of the chuckles and some of the things that go on when we see certain movies like a Jason Statham movie, like A Working Man, or, other movies like that, where we get the action. Ooh, oh, ah, wow. Or let me tell you this. Ted, what about all those movies which by the way, you don't have anything to do with, right? You don't do anything with Star Wars or Marvel or DC. You don't have any of those kind of universes. Notice that Netflix has nothing to do with that. I'll tell you this. If Stranger Things went on and finished their 5th season, the chance of doing a movie, right? What about the fact that you're going to have Peaky Blinders, they're going to have a movie? Well, it's BBC, right? So if Peaky Blinders gets a movie, you're telling me you don't want the theaters to go and get that Peaky Blinders movie? You're telling me that you don't want Stranger Things to have a movie? They decide to go to a movie adaptation to kind of close out the whole thing? You think it's just good enough to go and put it right there on Netflix and that's it? I don't know. I mean, just because you don't want to go and be a part of the movie theaters and get with them on the experience, the movie theaters right now are desperate for real content. They want movies to be shown so they can go and watch and be seen and have something to enjoy. The fact you want to go and do that, well, that's on you. But let's put it like this too, Ted. What movies do you have right now that would absolutely be like, if you put in the movie theater, it's going to sell? Do you have any movies right now that you have at the moment that you would put money behind and say, okay, we're going to give it some extra budget on this and see what happens? First of all, how many movies do you have right now and what kind of budget do they have? Tell me that. I bet you don't know that. Because some of these movies that you have, sure, the film festival likes favorites or might be critically acclaimed or something like that, but then it's also a matter of where these movies would be nice to have in independent theaters and some of these movies theaters that will showcase foreign films. That'd be kind of nice, but we don't have that right now. Wire Magazine talks about the best movies on Netflix. I just figured out, put this list, see what I have. There's Dead Talent Society, Leave the World Behind. Now, Leave the World Behind has No, that's a movie that's been out before. That was a past movie that it did, right? But had a very big cast. I'm trying to find the ones that they have here that are from here that would really make a big difference. Okay. You have Troll. And I got to find out which movies are going to be done. So, movies Nordic. It's, again, foreign film that they have. Plankton the movie, which is based on the SpongeBob movie, right? I don't know if it will do that well in the theaters. And I don't know if they need the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. I think they've had one that was in the theaters, right? And I look at some of the movies that they have here. I Don't Feel Home in This World Anymore, starring Melanie Linsky. The Two Popes. Let's see. Oh, Parasite was a movie that's already in the theaters. And I'm just looking right now. Okay, Carry On was a movie they had out. Christmas, movie set at Christmas. And that was the one with, director was Jamie Colette Sarah and Taron Egerton and Sophia Carson's in it, Jason Bateman. And all I know is that movie got a barely above like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Nobody really got any real big thing about it. There's Joy. I'm just looking at what they have here. Amelia Perez, of course, which I don't know if that would have really done well in theaters at all. I mean, there might have been some kind of interest for Zoe Saldana because we're familiar with her. We didn't know anything about Carla Sofia Gascon before all this. And the one thing is with Netflix, they don't let you know necessarily which movies are of their original movies. And then, honestly, some of the movies they might have would never really be able to go and get pushed out there and be able to come out and get $100 million in the box office. I don't think it would happen. And might not resonate well for international audiences either. Let's just make that clear, too. Hitman, there's another one with Glenn Powell. I don't know if that movie would have done well, but also I heard barely above average. Because for the most part, I never hear of any Netflix movies that are all of a sudden somebody has to go and buy Netflix just to watch that movie. Let me put it like that. Are there any movies on Netflix where you're all of a sudden, I need to go out of my way to go watch this movie, so I'm going to go ahead and pick it up? And Netflix is the only one that wants to be the holdout on doing movie theater exhibitions. Apple still does it. Amazon will still do it. NBC Universal will do it before it goes to Peacock. Same thing for Paramount before it goes to Paramount Plus. Like they're all doing the deals of, and Max, for Warner Brothers. Same thing goes. They're all doing something where they're still going to put it out in theaters before they go to their proprietary platforms. They're all willing to give it a chance. And one of the things that happened was when we had the day and date attempt by Warner Brothers to put movies out in theaters and on streaming, sure, it got people to go, but there were still people that were going to the movie theaters to go watch it anyway. But at that time, it was different. We are so far past COVID. We can go back to what we have right now in the theaters. So what has to happen is, are there other things that can be doing right now, the movie theater experience, to make it better? Well, first of all, any movie theater that you're going to, the movieplexes have to make sure to go ahead and upgrade their screens, upgrade their furniture. Like if you're not in the theater right now, at this point, where over the last decade at least, we've had a lot of theaters that have been now taking out the bucket seats, putting in leather. They've all got leather recliners now for the most part. A lot of the Regal theaters are doing that. I know Regal already put another couple $100 million, I think it is, to invest into that. I know there are some of the theaters in the Regal theater system that they want to go include. They might not have the IMAX experience, but they have the RPX, the version 4 RPX, or the DPX. I think they got these other expanded and larger scale features they can do right now. So they can have the IMAX experience for you on a smaller scale. They're all doing this part. AMC has been also upgrading their theaters to have the red leather chairs. And also the fact that you're getting better sound, better screens across the board. They're all making the changes to it. So if you haven't checked your theaters, you should find out about that too. As for the concessions, well, one of the things that is kind of nice right now in the movie theaters that they don't talk about enough was that in the movie theaters now, a lot of the movies that you have out there, especially the franchise movies, they all have merchandise now that you can actually buy now, or you can get it as part of what they're going to do, right? Collectibles. Basically, every movie you see now these days has collectibles. I look right now in my Regal Theater, and if you want to get the gloves from Red One, if you want to get, collectibles from Badlands, there's, of course, some of that. But then there's stuff like, Mufasa the Lion King. You want to get something from there. You want to get something from Wicked. You want to get Gladiator. You want to get, there's all these collectible popcorn tins and souvenir cups. Every movie now almost feels like has one. So if you want something that's part of that movie that you want to support, you get to go and take that if you want and get that. You're going to be a part of that if you want to do that, which is kind of cool. When I think of some of the movies that have come out this year in the theaters, there's something to be said about what's coming out and what movies I would tell you I wouldn't want to watch on Netflix. All right. When I'm looking at right now, the top grossing movies of the year, at the moment, box office gross has already surpassed $2 million already for the year. At the moment, Minecraft movie is now by far the number one movie of the year in the box office. And currently right now, Minecraft movie is surpassed $700 million, 700 million worldwide. It will pass $1 billion. The way it's going right now, it's going to get past $1 billion. Amazing. I didn't think it was going to be able to make that much, but also off of a $150 million budget, pretty good. Captain America Brave New World, I think it was over $200 billion they put in the budget, and it was just disappointing. Marvel movie that should not be done because it looked like it was partly made for television. That's where Disney is a little bit kind of lost in the mix because they're trying to put certain things, and they're also determining if something needs to be on their streaming service or in the theaters. Well, Brave New World only got to $414 million overall. And the budget, it looks like, was $200 million or $180 million. And it did get the full run, 4,000 plus theater screens, 6.4 weeks average run per theater, only cranking out $400 million. That's a disappointment. That's a bomb. Did not do well. Mufasa the Lion King, only other movie that has actually broken domestically, $100 million. And then Dogman is just behind that. Snow White was just a tanker on the way in. Has not done well. I mean, Snow White, oh my goodness. And then that movie get to like $250 million, I think it was. And now at the moment, Snow White is still under $200 million. And yeah, $269 million budget. Oh my goodness. Not counting marketing promotion. So make sure to put that over $300 million or maybe $350 million. Average 4 weeks per average in the theater. It opened widescreen 4,200. And man, oh man, it made about half of its gross on opening weekend. But yeah, so far, $194 million for Snow White. Bomb. There have been not a lot of movies to go and go after that have been really stand out. Sinners is actually right now doing pretty well, and that's going to most likely make it past the $100 million domestic level. Already in its first week, and we're getting to the second week right now. What was it? $60 million that made the first weekend. Currently right now, $87 million. Not bad. And the budget on that right now is $90 million. We've heard that whole thing about what Ryan Coogler was able to get to that movie. And it didn't get the full brunt of the theater screens. 3,000 theater screens right now, but it's already been out for 1 week. And getting into the second week right now, it will break $100 million for sure. Probably break $100 million domestically. And we'll be heading towards the 150. I can see if it gets 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, Sinners are going to be able to make it. It'll be able to make and break even. Sure to break even, maybe we'll make a profit. But it'll be close. But it's also an original concept. And they did put a lot of marketing promotion behind it. Moana 2 is on that list. That's also a throwback from last Thanksgiving. One of them days was the other movie that actually kind of did pretty well. One of the few comedies we had on the lineup, and now it's Keke Palmer and SZA. $51 million total, and the budget on that was $14 million. That's a meager but not bad. Listen, it didn't get a full thing of the theater screens as well, but it stayed out there for 6 weeks. $11 million in the first week. I mean, it's a movie that started off, what it was in February, and it did fine. Now, that was a movie worth watching in the theater. For a comedy, you wanted to watch it in the theater and get into it. And it wasn't that bad. And I probably would have go and watch it again, but I didn't feel like going for a second time. I considered it, but I didn't do that. But for the most part, I thought it did fine. I don't think it was any much of an issue about that. Martin Luther King weekend, it came out. And so far, like I said, or actually January 17th it first came out. There we go. But it still did very well. It made a profit, and it wasn't big. It was, again, done on the cheap for what it's worth. And I could definitely see where they decided to go and do a sequel on this and see how well it does. Because you had 2 black female leads in this. It wasn't like the movie had definitely had significant recognizable talent, stars that people would know, but not mainstream to the top kind of thing. But the movie did fine. Would I have wanted to see that on Netflix? I don't know. And like some of these others, I don't know if it will make a difference. But there's a level where you can see certain movies that should make it on Netflix and some that shouldn't. That's just my thing. When you feel comfortable going to a movie and saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and step aside. I'm going to go ahead and just, stop for a second, grab a snack, stop for a second, hit the restroom. When you don't mind stopping a movie in the middle of it and coming back to it later, if you are willing to go ahead and watch the movie at home, you're more privileged to get on your phone, more privileged to be talking to somebody else randomly through the movie, which means you're watching it like a TV show. And we already know that most of the TV shows these days are pretty much done where they're just background noise. It's not like anybody's really intently watching the show like they might have 10 years ago. They're just not. It's not that way anymore. I don't know if people really feel comfortable having their movies like that, but I don't. I don't want it to be like that. I don't like the thought of what they're doing right here and this discussion. So that's the idea of what they're talking about here. And I just thought that, Ted Sarandos just gets under my skin when he talks like this stuff, So there's some political stuff that I could talk about here, which I'm not going to get too much into, but I'll say this. 60 Minutes, their executive producer, Bill Owens, quit the news magazine show this week. And the head of Paramount right now, Sherry Redstone, the daughter of Sumner Redstone, spoke about freedom of the press and was speaking at the documentary premiere of The Children of October 7th. And Redstone said this when she was asked about the role of the media in the current era and what freedom of speech means. She says, quote, "There's nothing controversial about telling the truth. There's nothing controversial about getting the real story out there. And I think companies have not only an opportunity, but a tremendous responsibility to use the resources that they have to tell these stories, to get them to as many audiences, let people decide how they feel about something and how they react to something, but give them the facts." And I don't know if that's being done right now by media companies like that are under the guise of Sherry Redstone and Paramount Global. Let's just say it like that. But that's a pretty standard answer. I agree with everything she's saying right there. But there's a difference about if that's being done with these happening these days. She says when asked about how she balances press freedom with the financial demands of media companies, quote, "I don't think there's ever a time you have to compromise what it is you say and do, but freedom of the press involves telling both sides of the story, giving the facts, not giving opinions. I think that's our responsibility as a media company." Well, listen, there's a lot of opinions being injected into the news on every corporate media outlet, period. I don't care which one there is, all of them do. And many of them are not one to go ahead and admit or amplify the fact that they are opinionated people and that their opinions or their biases are going to be in the news that's out there. Every one of these news cable outlets or any of the network news outlets, all of them, they have the same certain news they want to talk about, which is not all the news that's happening. And second, they're going to have their own slant as to what that news story is. They're not going to give you both sides of the view or all sides of the view. They're going to give you one side. And that's not either. That's still giving an opinion. There's one way to giving the facts, but then also, if you're giving those facts, then you can give the points of view that are being said about this. There are critics that say this. There are people that are favoring this. And you just do it like that and leave it up to people. So I get that part. Now, this week, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta and Facebook, he spent more than 10 hours doing testimony over the last 3 days of last week, in the opening phase of the Federal Trade Commission's antitrust trial against Meta. And the company, he says, Zuckerberg, has been involved with the general idea of entertainment and learning about the world and discovering what's going on. Because he was being said about now the social network, what social media is doing right now these days. Basically, they were talking about the fact that social media has become less social. They're not wrong about that. And in the story for the New Yorker, they talk about in the last decade, social media has come to resemble something more than like regular media. It's where we find promotional videos created by celebrities, pundits shouting responses to the news, aggregated clips from pop culture, rising tide of AI-generated slop, and other content designed to be broadcast to the largest number of viewers possible. The people we follow and the messages they post increasingly feel like needles in the digital haystack. Right. It's just filling a void. I mean, social media, yes, entertainment value, it's absolutely going to take over some of the entertainment value of what television was at one point. But when people are not happy or content with what you're watching on television or even on streaming for that matter, they're going to social media for it because you can't. Now, when it comes to finding out information, I mean, social media is also being the place for that as well. But it's not well organized. It's just like it's kind of there. I mean, there are some places that are more social than others. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, people are not talking to friends like you're talking to friends anymore. They're more about commenting things about something that people might be collectively talking about. So we have the public forum, the village, if you will. That's all we're getting right now. We're not getting so much the interest. And the thing is, we have gotten to the point where some people that were just friends now have become influencers. So when they had a certain following, now the larger following that they have makes them an influencer. More or less like a celebrity. And that's a new celebrity now these days. Not the ones that have been contrived by Hollywood. The FTC is arguing that Meta maintained an illegal monopoly in the personal social networking services industry by buying up Facebook's competitors like Instagram and WhatsApp. The FTC definition of the social media industry is hazy, and the antitrust case was already dismissed once. And during this trial, Meta exhibited a graphic of a boxing ring showing the logos of Instagram, Facebook, and the various companies that Meta argues are competitors, including TikTok, YouTube, and Apple's iMessage. Through the FTC, doesn't define any of those three as such. And the company also used smartphone screenshots of the various apps to demonstrate how they've gravitated towards common formats. Short video clips look similar like on both Instagram and TikTok. Messages look essentially the same in Instagram and DMs as Apple's iMessage. Even the similarities serve as helpful evidence as Meta's defense. They also demonstrate how stultifying the entire online ecosystem has become. But the thing is, right now we're at Facebook getting an antitrust, but the truth is Facebook and Instagram, they're in the rearview mirror. They're not the current place that people are going to for content. Personally, I think it's TikTok and X. That's where I really think people are really going into for that. For me, that's where I get most of my content, TikTok and Twitter or X. The bottom line is Facebook now had its time. In the early 2010s into about 2018, 2019, right before COVID. And then it just lost its favor. Like, it's just not the same anymore. Plus, using Facebook before, it's always been clunky anyway. They added so many more things to the platform now. It's just not as simple as it once was. Because Facebook itself, to its own detriment, kept doing more things to try to add more to its content. And instead of trying to add more bulkiness and bloat to the Facebook platform, Zuckerberg has said, well, no, we're going to do something by creating other platforms or just buying from others. Thus, Instagram and WhatsApp. He's not going to try to create some messenger service. You add dating for Facebook, and it sucks. The Facebook dating app is one of the worst things they have on there. The news feed, the way it's built out, it was much better before years ago. So much easier to go and get across and learn things. But then there's so much advertising on there, so much bloat So much that I don't even care about when I go on Facebook. Not to mention, every time I keep going on Facebook and on Instagram, I keep getting suspended and then restored. I don't even understand what I'm doing right now because I'll go to Facebook and like every other 3 days, I got to go and appeal. I don't even know what I did, but it's all the time. So sometimes I can't put audiograms up there. So if you're asking yourself why, that's why. I want to get into some radio news now because, when there's time, they're going to talk about it. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about for tonight. Oh, actually, one more thing. Before I do that, let's go and get into National Association of Broadcasters. Broadcasters are waiting an appeals court ruling on whether new sponsorship identification rules are constitutional. The NABs continue to push for the proposed information collection by local TV and radio stations to be cast aside, during urging the Federal Office of Management and Budget to reject the plan. So there are new rules on sponsorship identification, which the intention for it was to keep foreign propaganda off of U.S. airways. But the NAB says that requiring multi-step diligence involving thousands of non-candidate issue advertisements and paid public service announcements with no evidence that any foreign governmental entity has even attempted to sponsor such advertising is a clear violation of the Paperwork Reduction Act. Broadcasters, according to the NAB, they have no objection to the requirement of disclosing foreign government-sponsored content, but the FCC has approved an elaborate mass of regulations, including obtaining certifications from entities that are obviously domestic, including local houses of worship and high school football teams. And under new rules, broadcasters will be required to do the same thing when airing advertising for such entities as the U.S. Army, a state highway administration airing a PSA to deter distracted driving, or non-candidate issue advertising. So the status of these regulations are unclear because the FCC withdrew it in a request in December for the OMB to approve them, and the NAB is not taking any chances, arguing the order remains unchanged. So the request to OMB comes to the decision remaining pending in the D.C. Court of Appeals, where the NAB's legal challenge plays out in a Washington courtroom earlier this month. If the legal case sides with the FCC, the OMB would deliver broadcasters an administrative victory. So going against the FCC, the NAB wants something that the FCC is trying to ask for, not to be added in because they think of extra costs. Pretty much what they're talking about. Speaking of costs, Cumulus Media, we talked about that they were having issues in fear of being delisted. Well, now they're just going to knock themselves off. Story first came out. Billboard says that radio broadcaster stock has closed under $1 per share since November 1st and earned delisting warnings in December and March. And now the story is coming now. Cumulus Media is going to be moving from the NASDAQ. They are off. After Wednesday's closing of the market, Cumulus Media announced it would move its stock from NASDAQ to the OTC, joining Odyssey in that same market, rather than investing time, effort, and cost in developing a plan to remain on NASDAQ because they can't afford it. So last month, another delisting warning from NASDAQ for not meeting the stockholders' equity requirement of $10 million to maintain its listing. And Cumulus Media reported stockholders' equity at $6.95 million. Now, as of Thursday, the stock ticker price for Cumulus Media was 27 cents a share. Ooh, man. So they're going to go to the OTC. They're going to be pink stocked. And yeah, what are you going to do? So they're off of there. They'll be on the OTC markets beginning May 2nd. Sucks to be them. But again, this is the ongoing thing that I have where you want to let these radio companies come on and they can't make money on their advertising. They can't make money on their revenue. They're not going to make money on their normal ends of trying to create multiple revenue pipelines. They can't do that. So what are they going to do? They tried to go the route of the stock market, get some shareholders. The shares went down, and now what are they stuck with? Delisted. And now the stocks are worth a fourth of the price. Come back next week for the Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, the content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.